Jesus is saying that he knew Abraham. He knew him face to face. Abraham didn't try to kill him. He made the promise to him that he was going to return and give him a son. They named him Laughter, Rejoicing, and they were filled with rejoicing. And the Jews eventually pick up on what's going on. That's why the Jews eventually say, you're not even 50 years old and you think you've seen Abraham? Messiah has John 8:56. Jesus is saying that Abraham saw his day and was glad. Where specifically is this in the Old Testament? So in my view, it's Genesis 18. If you look at John 8, there's actually this. Abraham isn't just relevant once you get to the latter part of John 8. Abraham is really relevant through most of the dispute between Jesus and the Jews in John 8. There's this whole dispute over who's, paternity, right? Both heavenly and earthly. On the one hand, there's this dispute over whether or not God is their father, right? Jesus suggests, in fact, does more than suggest, that God is not their father. And in fact, Satan is their father in John 8, right? But there's also this discussion of their spiritual lineage. They're boasting that they're the physical descendants of Abraham. And Jesus is saying things like, you're not the children of Abraham. Yes and no, actually. He's saying you are, but not in the most important sense. You're children of Abraham according to the flesh, but spiritually, you don't have the faith of Abraham, and that's evident by your words and actions. Okay, so if you go to John 8, verse 31, Jesus was saying to the Jews who had believed him, now this is just doesn't mean true saving faith. There's just this, they have this level of they've come a certain distance in their understanding of Jesus, and they have this tentative belief in him, right? It's quickly going to turn sour because they don't really believe in him for who he claims to be, right? Jesus was saying to those Jews who had believed him, right? If you continue in my word, then you are truly disciples of mine, and you'll know the truth, and the truth will make you free. They answered him, we are Abraham's descendants. Notice they bring up Abraham. We are Abraham's descendants and have never yet been enslaved to anyone. How is it that you say you will become free? Now, think about this for a minute, by the way. The statement just shows that they have completely forgotten who they are and who they were told to remember that they are. Right? Remember the preface to the Ten Commandments? God said, I am the Lord your God who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage, slavery. Abraham's descendants were in slavery, and God redeemed them from their Egyptian bondage. Okay? They were to remember this. They were the delivered of the Lord. Here they're saying, we've never been in bondage or enslaved to anyone. Okay? Because we're Abraham's descendants. Jesus answered them, truly, truly, I say to you, everyone who commits sin is the slave of sin. The slave does not remain in the house forever. The son does remain forever. So if the son makes you free, you'll be free indeed. Now notice this. I know that you are Abraham's descendants, yet, so he's saying physically, right? Yet you seek to kill me because my word has no place in you. I've spoken the things which I have seen with my Father. Therefore, you also do the things which you heard from your father. So he's suggesting that they are not the children of Abraham in some other sense. And what is it that particularly leads to this? Verse 38 calls their paternity into question, right? Therefore, you also do the things which you heard from your father, meaning not Abraham, somebody else. Later, he'll say Satan. Okay, so what is it that Jesus is after here? It's this phrase, yet you seek to kill me. That's the thing that proves that there's something out of whack with respect to their relationship to Abraham and their claim to be his descendants. But notice it gets more pointed in a minute. They answered and said to him, Abraham is our father. So they recognize that Jesus is saying, in some sense, no, he isn't, right? Jesus said to them, if you are Abraham's children, do the deeds of Abraham. Now watch this closely. But as it is, you are seeking to kill me, a man who has told you the truth, which I heard from God. Okay. Then it says, this Abraham did not do. What is this? Okay. Jesus is talking about something specific that Abraham did not do. What is it that Abraham did not do? What's the antecedent in this statement? What is this Abraham did not do? What did Abraham not do that these people are trying to do that proves they're not the true descendants of Abraham? Isn't it glorious? Jesus is saying, if you were Abraham's children, you wouldn't be trying to kill me. Abraham didn't try to kill me. Well, what could he possibly be talking about? Okay. He's acting like Abraham is just this man who is so hospitable, right? In contrast to one who would try to kill him, Abraham was a man full of hospitality who would fling open the tent doors to him, make food, tell Sarah to make food for him, sit down, have a meal. I'm alluding to Genesis 18. Now, there's something else here. In Genesis 18, we learn that God appeared to Abraham with two angels, right? So there's three men. Abraham looks up and sees three men, the Lord and two angels appearing in human form. Abraham tells Sarah to make a meal for them and so forth. Now watch this, though. It gets so good. It gets so good. I love this question, and I know I've brought it up with people before. But this is a text that I read over many times and didn't see this. So this is not like, if you didn't see this, you were dumb. But if you didn't see it, you missed something huge, right? I didn't see it. I don't know. I don't even remember the first time I noticed it, but it's huge, right? God appears to Abraham, and two things take place. He announces the coming birth of Isaac, and he announces that he's going to go down into Sodom and destroy it, right? That's why Abraham intercedes for Sodom, and it leads to the rescue of Lot and so forth. But here's the words of God to Abraham about the coming birth of Isaac. He says, I'll return to you at the appointed time next year, and Sarah, your wife, will have a son. Here's the $1 million question. In light of what God said to Abraham, what do you think Abraham was looking forward to next year? Now, this is going to knock you over if you haven't heard this before. Like I said, I know I've said it before, and I read over this so many times and missed it. But when I saw it, it was like, man, you're such a dolt. How do you miss something that huge? What do you think Abraham was looking forward to next year? But the normal answer that we would give is he was looking forward to the birth of Isaac. But note the words for those of you that didn't catch it. What God says is, I will return to you at the appointed time next year, and Sarah, your wife, will have a son. Yes, Abraham's going to have a son, Isaac, next year. But his coming, his birth, is going to coincide with the return of the Lord. So if you were Abraham, you'd be looking forward to the birth of Isaac because it means the return of the Lord. Isaac's birth means the coming of God, right? God would return. Now, what happens? It gets better. What happens when God announces this to Abraham and Sarah? Sarah's in the tent, and Sarah laughs. This laughter is a laughter of unbelief, right? So Sarah laughed. Shall I have a son? I'm so old, my womb's dried up. She laughs. She laughs at the promise. And then God says, why did she laugh? And she says, I didn't laugh. And the Lord says, yes, you did. Right? Like a stern father just correcting his child trying to lie, right? Yes, you did. Stop it. Knock it off. Right? Well, when the child is born, that laughter of unbelief turned to a laughter of joy and rejoicing, didn't it? When you read the account of Isaac's birth, they name him Isaac for this reason. His name Isaac means rejoicing or laughter, right? But now it's not one of unbelief, but Sarah says, who would have thought that that I would have born a son, right? She's now rejoicing. Right now, Abraham all along believed God's promise, right? We're told in the New Testament he waxed strong in faith. He didn't weaken in faith. He believed God's promise. What was for Sarah a laughter of unbelief was for Abraham an anticipation, a joyful anticipation. The birth of Isaac coinciding with the return of the Lord. Abraham, in other words, was rejoicing to see that day. He rejoiced. He saw it and was glad, right? That's what I ultimately think is going on in John 8. Jesus is saying, that he knew Abraham. He knew him face to face. Abraham didn't try to kill him. He made the promise to him that he was going to return and give him a son. They named him Laughter, Rejoicing, and they were filled with rejoicing, and so on and so forth. And the Jews eventually pick up on what's going on. That's why the Jews eventually say, you're not even 50 years old, and you think you've seen Abraham, right? You claim to have seen Abraham. And then Jesus says, before Abraham was, I am, right? They're eventually getting it. They're realizing this guy's claiming that he was there with Abraham. He's not just saying that Abraham saw prophetically in the vision down the road the Messiah is going to come, but that he spoke with Jesus in human form. Incredible stuff. Incredible stuff.